Thinking about the first couple of days of the DNC and Team Obama last night, all of the caterwauling and the criticism of Trump, everything that's wrong, and they acknowledge a lot of things are wrong, somehow the sole responsibility of Trump, who has been in the White House as a Republican for 4 of the last 16 years. So the last 16 years, Democrats have controlled the
Right.
White House for 12 of them.
And how's that going?
But somehow all the things that Bernie Sanders was crapping about are Trump's fault. Interesting, too, if you look at on Twitter and you see which parts of the speech that Comrade Bernie gave are getting sort of the most cuts and pastes and comments.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with economics. It's everything to do with him calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. It tells you how far afield the activists are from those swing voters in battleground states. And so you can look at all those battleground polls, but I would direct people's attention to one number. Now, this isn't the whole thing, and you've heard me talk about the need for Trump to make an overall sociocultural, to deliver an overall sociocultural message that ties everything up in a way that he hasn't so far. It can't just be one issue after the other, siloed and disconnected. But where Trump is versus Kamala in terms of the American public's confidence with respect to the economy, in other words, which candidate you trust more to improve conditions economically, Trump has a double-digit lead, and that's according to a relatively recent WAPO NBC poll. But you've seen it in others, too, when you start to get into the crosstabs and look at it. Double-digit lead on an issue that most voters say is their priority and something that Bernie Sanders hit upon, but the activists don't want to talk about for obvious reasons because it presents all these complications like, okay, well, who's been in office for the last 3.5 years and who's been in office for 12 of the last 16 years and whose policies have been followed. And like I said earlier, I'm a little perplexed. On the one hand, Biden's bust belongs on Mount Rushmore, and he's been a wildly successful president pursuing the policies of Bernie Sanders and the Socialist Spice Girls. On the other hand, he's turning around and bitching about 60% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck and people not being able to afford rent, groceries, and gas. So which is it? How do you square that circle? You can't. So instead of squaring that circle, you got Team Obama to run the game they've been running for 20 years, to project their con onto Trump's. All identitarian politics all the time. First, Michelle.
It's his same old con. His same old con. Doubling down on ugly, misogynistic, racist lies as a substitute for real ideas and solutions that will actually make people's lives better. Look, because cutting our health care, taking away our freedom to control our bodies, the freedom to become a mother through IVF like I did, those things are not going to improve the health outcomes of our wives, mothers, and daughters. Shutting down the Department of Education, banning our books, none of that will prepare our kids for the future. Demonizing our children for being who they are and loving who they love. Look, that doesn't make anybody's life better.
That's a lot of spaghetti against the wall to direct people's attention away from pocketbook issues, isn't it? Barack followed up. Tag team.
Knows it's easier to play on people's fears and cynicism, always has been. They will tell you that government is inherently corrupt, that sacrifice and generosity are for suckers.
Yeah, right. It's our values. Let's unify the country around our values. Okay. We're going to try it one more time, see if they can get away with it one more time.
And then tonight we get to hear President Clinton talk about how misogynistic Trump is, because that's not hypocritical at all.
For more on all this, please be joined by Susan Crabtree. She is the national political correspondent for RealClearPolitics.com. Susan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So before we begin, just because you've been doing such excellent reporting on the topic, Any Secret Service problems at the DNC so far? Anybody needing to breastfeed or chest feed while on duty? Any such problems?
Not so far, but I do. The rank and file special agents and uniform division officers are a little upset that a woman named Delisa Walker Hall is here. She is the human capital coordinator for the Secret Service. I don't think it's her exact title, but she's a psychologist, and she's supposedly here to check on the Secret Service. That's what the spokesman told me. But there's some resentment that she's being ferried around to parties by a DS-14 driver. And a lot of these people are.
Was she the director of human capital? That's quite a title. Are there people at the Secret Service, or are these droids? Anyway, that person is there to what? Make sure there are no Secret Service agents suffering from PTSD. What?
Yes, this is what I'm being told by the Secret Service. But the way it came to me was from sources on the ground who are resenting. They feel like she's just here to party, and she's a Kamala Harris supporter.
Oh, of course.
They can party together, get their drink on.
Mm-hmm. And she was not at the RNC. Just 2 days, a day after, 48 hours after there was an assassination attempt on former President Trump. They did not have a mental health specialist doing welfare checks to the Secret Service at that convention, but they do have one at this convention.
Well, if she's too busy going from social event to social event, Brandon Johnson's got a team of people around him at all times, so he could give a recommendation. And Kim Cheadle, I know she's a friend of the regime too, and she's got some time on her hands now. She partying? Been seen?
I have not seen her here. We're going to have Ron Rowe, the acting director. He is going to make an appearance here. But I did report last week that Kimberly Cheadle does have her own Secret Service detail now.
And I bet it's all men, right?
People were making comments that they thought she should have the incompetent women Secret Service agents. Well, I don't know what the makeup is, but it is unprecedented for a former Secret Service director to get protection. I know she is receiving threats, so maybe it's warranted, and we certainly don't wish any ill will on anybody or that is facing threats to their lives. But it is taxpayer expense, and she's no longer employed by the federal government.
Well, speaking of threats, President Trump is going back out and outdoor campaigning today with J.D. Vance. They're going to talk about national security. But do you have any concerns at all? Do you think it's too soon since Butler, Pennsylvania?
Well, I am concerned about the state of the Secret Service because of everything that we know about their security lapses so far. I don't think that you can turn that ship around, that aircraft carrier around immediately. So, knowing what I know and dating back to the 12 years I've been covering the Secret Service, they're having manpower shortages. They have morale problems. I'm hearing that dozens of special agents have retired or left the service since the assassination attempt because morale is so low. So, yeah, I am worried. I am concerned.
Well, yeah, if I was Kim Cheadle, I might want to think about private security. I'm sure the taxpayers would be happy to foot the bill for that too. The investigation, how's that going? Are we going to have some Republican senators chase Ron Rowe around the convention floor the way they had to chase Cheadle in Milwaukee, or do we have any progress on that investigation and any sort of indication that there'll be some disciplinary action taken against particular agents?
Yes, we do have some information. I will share some with you that I'm going to break. I was on the radio show with our own radio show yesterday, so I did break it then, but I don't think it's been widely reported, and I'm going to be reporting on it. The Pittsburgh field office is on administrative leave. They're
the
not
whole
on
office?
The people that were involved in the Butler rally.
Oh, okay.
So there's a handful, and the lead agent that was in charge of the Secret Service security for that event. There's also a counterpart on the Donald Trump detail. So those people are on administrative leave, and that is a sign that they are likely going to take the fall, then not the Donald Trump detail, and including the lead site agent, who is a woman and who planned the whole security for the event. She was in charge, and she has been known, and I reported this, to post on social media, and she's under scrutiny for that, but she's still working every day for posting on social media from Mar-a-Lago and other Secret Service assignments.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Do we have her name?
I do have it. I am not sharing that because there has been several suicides, including one on that particular detail. So my boss and I have decided not to share the names of the rank and file. We have printed the names of the supervisors.
So you're saying one of the Secret Service agents that was at Butler, Pennsylvania, the day of the assassination attempt, took his or her own life?
No, that was last year.
Oh,
there was a suicide on that team last year.
So there's been some disciplinary action taken, but they're going to localize it rather than hold anybody sort of at corporate headquarters accountable. That's the read?
Yeah, that's the read that I'm getting from my sources. It's in the Secret Service community. And Ron Rowe, he was Cheadle's handpicked deputy. He gave a speech last week to the entire Secret Service, which I was able to hear the live stream of it from my sources. So I was tweeting about it in real time. And he was saying that this is a new era. We're going to turn. It's no longer going to be, I'm not following the mantra of do more with less. That was the big mantra. We don't have the budget, so we're going to do more with less. And Ron Rowe, after his address, which I thought was a pretty earnest pep talk and needed to be done, but the Secret Service agents and officers that I spoke to afterwards, this is your management style. You're talking about the problems that you were the number two when all of this happened. You were involved in not providing counter surveillance units.
He's pulling a Kamala Harris. I had nothing to do with that previous regime I was a part of.
Exactly. That's a really good analogy. Exactly. I mean, he has little choice, but the fact that he was appointed by Mayorkas is ridiculous. They should have chosen somebody either from outside the organization or somebody that wasn't Cheadle's handpicked right-hand man.
And the FBI investigation into the shooter, I mean, we learned things after the fact, like they had the body of the would-be assassin cremated, and they're as usual, they're lacking a bit in transparency, even internally, so things leak out about what they're actually doing, and it raises questions they won't answer. So just their handle on their responsibilities with respect to what happened in Butler.
I cannot believe that the FBI is the one that's, well, of course we're going to have a task force on the House side that's being set up, but the FBI was homing in on this Pakistani man that has ties with Iran and arrested him the day before the Butler rally. So the question in my mind is, did they tell the Secret Service that they were homing in on this man? And did the headquarters let the site agent and all the people planning the security for Butler know about that this was a high risk? Because Ron Rowe and Director Cheadle denied the amount of counter snipers that they wanted. They wanted 4 teams. They gave them 2 teams. If they had 4 teams, they would have had somebody on that rooftop.
Wait a second. Then didn't Ron Rowe lie when he testified before Congress? Because didn't he say that he had nothing to do with resource allocation decisions with respect to Butler or Trump generally?
Yes, he has said that repeatedly, but other whistleblowers have undermined those comments and saying that he was, of course, involved in these decisions. He was, of course, involved with these decisions. He used to be the director of the opera that it's called Protective Operations Division before he was the deputy. So all of these decisions to treat Trump like a former president and not like he broke the mold of any protocol you would ever have because he has these tens of thousands of people at his rallies. They were treating him like a former president so he didn't get counter snipers up until this event. This is the first event where they did get counter snipers because of the Iranian threat. But why didn't they get the full package? That's what it's called. Why didn't they get the 4 counter snipers? Why didn't they get the counter surveillance units that roam around? They would have found as soon as Crooks got that rangefinder out, they would have sent an investigative team over there, and they would have nabbed him.
Maybe the FBI tried to communicate with Secret Service, but their radios were not interoperable. Maybe that's what happened.
Yeah, it is pretty unbelievable. That's it, the siloed communications. And Ron Rose said last week, I'm going to change that, and we're going to not start having drones. In fact, they already are using drones when they hadn't before. Regularly used drones, they only use tethered drones. I won't get into the technical details, but at permanent sites like Camp David and the White House. But they had the ability, and there were people within the Secret Service pushing for the use of drones for years, since 2016. So he was in on those decisions. He was the number 2. You can't absolve him from the security decisions to deny Trump repeatedly over the course of 2 years more assets, security assets, and those counter snipers that would have been on that roof that day. So the 8th floor is the one that needs the cleaning up. It's really the leadership.
It's really something to behold. I mean, it literally is like what we talk about with big city mayors. Like you could put Brandon Johnson in pick a major city, another major city, put him in Philadelphia, and the Philadelphia mayor in Chicago, and Kim Foxx in L.A. and the L.A. prosecutor, and it wouldn't change anything. And I feel this is the same way about all these alphabet soup law enforcement agencies inside the federal government. You could put Cheeto LaRoe in FBI and Ray at Secret Service or Mayorkas at Secret Service and somebody else at DHS. I mean, it wouldn't change anything. They all operate the same way.
And that is why a Blue Ribbon Commission in 2015 said that somebody needs to be appointed from outside the agency, not people that you're cozy with, that presidents choose, the people that they trust, that they were cozy with on their detail. Like in Kimberly Cheadle's case, Joe Biden chose her to be the director, and people were kind of like, why? She's not even that respected in the agency itself. And she was working for Pepsi at the time, which I'm told Joe Biden had a role in getting her that private security job as well. It was very lucrative. So you can't be doing this. Now Senator Grassley wants to have Congress appoint the director and have it go through the regular nominations process, but not the presidents choosing their friends that protected them and maybe even protected their family in the case of Hunter Biden. And the cocaine incident, we know Cheeto also wanted that cocaine destroyed.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is not a good idea to have your friends leading the agency that you're so cozy with.
I got a bunch of guys in Cicero that could do a better job providing security for these protectees than the Secret Service sounds like it's providing. But great reporting. Thank you for sharing that. Susan Crabtree just continues to be all over this. She is the national political correspondent for RealClearPolitics.com. Susan, thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for your interest.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy on the AM 560 The Answer mobile app. Just text the word app to 64636 to download the app.